A couple of weeks ago, I posted a caption, "Why I No Longer Believe." Now, that post was obviously talking about no longer believing in evolution. Not that I ever did, by the way, but that heading was an enticement to get people to watch, and thanks for those who did. I was either too smart or too simple to believe that we ever came from apes. Yet some who just read the heading thought that I was talking about no longer believing, relating it to their Christian faith. How sad to jump to that conclusion. Others at least gave me the courtesy to listen through, and I thank you. And I hope that you'll listen through there today, so please stay with me. While obviously there are always skeptics out there, it's very easy to dismiss the content of a post with comments like, "He should go back to school," or "How unscientific." Well, the reason for this post, just last night I was watching Ps Morgan. Ps Morgan was podcasting on YouTube, interviewing one of the top scientific minds in the world today, Stephen Meyer. This credible, highly credentialed scientist said pretty much exactly word for what I said on my last post.
Is your belief that the Darwin theory actually fails?
I think it does fail. The idea of natural selection acting on random mutations and variations is now understood to lack the creative power to generate major changes in the history of life. Bill Gates said that DNA is like a software program, but much more complex than any we've ever devised.
Big Bang Theory. Why would that lend support to a theory of a God?
The picture of the universe that has emerged is a universe that had a definite beginning and therefore requires some sort of external creator or cause.
That comes back to the idea of a designer of all.
Now, they were discussing how unscientific the theory of evolution is. You can find that, as I mentioned, on YouTube. See, Stephen Meyer is not the only scientist, by the way. I've seen a long list, hundreds of names, who believe in God, scientists who believe in God. Here's a photo of many of them. Now, the majority of scientists now believe also that life is just far too complex to just have arrived, and so they down the theory of intelligent design. It's accepted in many scientific circles. Some don't want to call him God because that would just be a step too far for some, yet many do, like Meyer and the long list I just showed you. I mentioned in my post, and it's true, Darwin in the 18th century had no knowledge of the complexity of DNA, of a cell or an atom. He never had a clue about the amazing workings of a cell, which they once thought was just a simple cell. Even I, in the 50s and 60s, was taught wrongly in school about the amoeba, the simple cell they thought was simple, they believed all living life came from. Yet we know today the cell is like a micro-manufacturing universe in its own right. Do a study and find out what is inside a cell. It may just surprise you. I have, and I've lectured on it. You will never call it a simple cell again. Remember that you have between 75 and 100 million cells in your body, and in every cell. And besides the flagella that I mentioned in my post, how incredible it is, and it could not have evolved, just that one little part, but I've mentioned that defies evolution. There is your DNA in a cell, only 4 letters, CTGA, only 4 nucleotides and nucleides, and forgive me for my pronunciation. I've mentioned before that I had a speech impediment and still do. But if you unravel the DNA in one cell, it makes a 6-foot strand. Now, there are 3 billion characters of CTGA in one single cell. Listen now. There are 500,000 characters in an average book, and that is counting the space between the letters as well. In other words, just in one cell, there are enough characters to fill 6,349 books. Go figure. Or I could say, as my mother would say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. You know, there's no other code like it. Even Bill Gates says that. If all your DNA was unraveled, you would have enough to go to the moon and back 178,000 times. Ps Morgan, who also is apparently a believer in God, interviewing the scientist Stephen Meyer, were discussing how absurd and outdated it is now for the evolutionists to believe that something came out of nothing. Exactly what I was saying. Even Richard Dawkins, one of the world's leading atheists, is on record saying he has no explanation how life came out of dead matter. Yet one of the comments on my post called me unscientific. Really? You know, Sir Isaac Newton, one of the greatest scientists of all time, he wrote more about God than science. Other incredible scientists who believed in God, Lord Kelvin, Pascal, Louis Astral, Francis Bacon, Sir Karl Popper. Sir Karl Popper fills half a column in the International Who's Who with his scientific achievements. He said this: evolution is not a scientific fact, but a metaphysical philosophy. I think I'm in good company. You know, the fine-tuning of the universe and our own galaxy solar system for life to exist in itself is mind-boggling. For it all to come together on this one planet, the exact distance from the Earth to the Sun, 93 million miles. If it were just 83 million miles, 10 million miles closer, which is just a few cosmic yards in the scheme of things, in one direction, we'd all fry. Or if it was 10 million miles in the other direction, we'd all freeze. We're also the exact right distance from the moon for the tides of our oceans, the right elements in the atmosphere, CO2 and hydrogen and oxygen and so forth. Gravity is just right to drop a feather to the earth, but just enough so that we can run and walk. I could go on, but there are over 200 what they call fine-tuning forks, the exact right tilt of the earth. You may not know it, but the Earth is moving at 67,000 miles per hour, and at the same time, it is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Apart from the miracle that we don't get motion sickness, what is the chance of it all happening by itself? No chance. And by the way, our own galaxy is traveling at 640,000 miles per hour through space. That means 1 second ago, you were 190 miles back there. Talk about putting the past behind you. Why not do some study and research? I have. Do you know that there are some gigantic stars that have been found out there? Now you remember this and think about it. You can fit 1.3 million Earths into our sun. The biggest star, and I can't pronounce it correctly, but Skeety, and you can Google it, is so big that you could fit 5 billion suns inside of it. Cangus Margaris, who they thought once was a star, but it's a constellation, they say now known as Big Dog, is so big, if the Earth was the size of a golf ball, this star would be the height of Mount Everest, 6 miles high. Now, I know all these things are beyond our comprehension. Darwin didn't know that. Huxley didn't know that. And by many of your comments, you did not know it either. Science has moved on, but some people, unfortunately, haven't. The comments like that was mentioned, I was unscientific, that I did not know what I was talking about. People who commented negatively like Billy Owen, Henrik Paulson, Neil Donovan, John Lyers, I'm naming you now, Tom Hutchison, John Cronk, Chris Cooper, and Roger Tucker, all endeavored to call me out in some way or to try to correct me. On one comment, I was talking about protons and electrons in an atom, and the slip of a tongue, once I mentioned proteins instead of protons. Proteins are in cells, I know that, hey, but a slip of the tongue, not as bad as Joe Biden, right? And he's the president of the United States. So he would say, hey, just give me a break, man. I'm smiling. Now, I'm in no way offended or put out by all the comments, but you can call me uneducated if you want, or you can call me just a kid from Taranaki. But for all your comments, you're now going to have to refer them to people like Stephen Meyer, who, as I said, is one of the top scientific minds in the world. And that long list, by the way. Huxley, one of the most known atheists that has ever lived, said, whatever is the point of evolution or wherever it leads to, we will believe it. In other words, evolution is not a theory, but a religion, endeavoring to replace God. By the way, Google this. They say that there are only 4%, some say 7% of the world's population that are atheists. Talk about being in a minority. To be honest, some of the comments, I can tell you that you did not know what you were talking about. Like the comment that one person said that every fossil is proof of evolution. I'm so sorry for your ignorance. The truth is, every fossil that has been found among the millions, there's not one that is showing a species evolving from one into another species. That is why it's called and well known in scientific circles as a missing link. Every scientist knows about it. If you found one, you'd be famous. Anybody with an education knows that there's never been a fossil showing evolution in between the species, like a backbone forming and so forth. So I have to tell you, as evolution is called the chain of life, can I ask you what makes up a chain? Links make up a chain. As there's no in-between fossils found, in other words, no links, there is no chain. There's no chain of life, just life as God created. And by the way, not only is there no fossil record in the change of the millions found, there is no observation of it taking place even today.